Ladies and gentlemen, Jason Sheeran has entered the building. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Mascot Horror has changed a lot since the release of the very game that revolutionized the horror game genre forever, Five Nights at Freddy's. I've only ever played the first game on my channel, and I have yet to finish it, but never got around to doing so. But we're not here to talk about that. Today, we will be talking about two different Mascot horror games that grew very popular over recent years. I am of course talking about Poppy Playtime and Garten of BanBan. These games would grow popular for different reasons, and we're going to talk about both games and which one is more superior. I am going to be going over each game individually, and then I am going to give a brief review on which game I find to be better. But without further ado, if you enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more. It would really help out a ton. With that said, let's begin the comparisons. Let's start with the famous Poppy Playtime. The first chapter was released on October 12, 2021, and this game would revolutionize the horror genre even further. I didn't get to play this game until July of 2022 due to not having a powerful enough PC to record a playthrough of it at the time, and I absolutely loved it. The first chapter was an absolute masterpiece, from the very colorful scenery and the very impressive graphics to the iconic chase scene with Huggy Wuggy. And let's not forget the absolutely phenomenal soundtrack. To this day, Poppy Playtime will always be one of my favorite games I've ever played, and if I ever had the chance to play it again 10 years later, I would. Chapter 2 was released on May 6th, 2022, 7 months after the first chapter, and it was just as good, if not better than the first. This chapter took what made the previous chapter so great and improved and expanded upon it. This is also the first chapter in the series where you have dialogue from Poppy, the little doll you rescue from her case during the tail end of the first chapter, and the villain of this chapter, Mommy Longlegs. Since I didn't play the first chapter until July of 2022, I was able to dive right into chapter 2 afterwards. Sure, the puzzles could sometimes be confusing, as well as some of Mommy's games being a little bit tedious, especially the Whack-a-Wuggy one. Sorry, this area is off limits! Oh no, But I was able to overlook that. Besides, challenge is what makes a game fun. This scene from chapter 2 is by far my favorite. Watch this. Where are you? I know you're up here. Oh, Jesus!
I asked you to play fair, and you cheated! I hate cheaters! Now, we're going to play one last game!
What's it called?
It's called Hide and Seek!
Wow. Absolutely terrifying. Also, the acting is fantastic. I'd say it's up there with some of my favorite movies. The voice actresses for both Poppy and Mommy did phenomenal in this. After beating both chapters, I could not wait for chapter 3 to come out. It eventually did on January 30th, 2024, 20 months after the second chapter, and just like the previous two, Chapter 3 was a fun time. As the chapters progressed, I also saw improvements in the graphics and the story, and it just blows me away with its colorful cast of characters, including Poppy and Kissy Missy, as well as Ollie, the person who calls us occasionally on the phone, and the villain of this chapter, Catnap, is easily the scariest villain so far. I am so excited to see what Mob Games does for Chapter 4. While I waited for Chapter 3 to be released, many other games would be made to try and replicate the success of Poppy Playtime. These games included Joyville and Playtown, but there was one clone that stood out from the rest, and that is the infamous Garten of BanBan. The first chapter was released on January 6th, 2023, and it wasn't bad. A little short and relatively easy to beat, but it was still kind of fun. It also wasn't nearly as impressive as Poppy Playtime when it came to graphics or soundtrack. Chapter 2 was released on March 3rd, 2023, only 2 months after the first. It was a slight improvement story-wise, but graphically, it looked the same. Just like in Poppy Playtime Chapter 2, Garten of BanBan Chapter 2 introduced dialogue into the game. But while the acting in Poppy Playtime was excellent, I'm afraid to say that it's not the case here. The voice acting is mediocre at best, and the character designs look god-awful. It also introduced us to characters such as BanBan, Nab, which is just BanBan spelt backwards, how original, and one of the most annoying characters in the series, Bambalina, who I would mistakenly call Bandalina in my videos. Chapter 3 was released on May 5th, 2023, 2 months after the second chapter came out. Story-wise, this chapter was peak for BanBan, and though some of the challenges could get very tedious, I still had a lot of fun. It also introduced us to Stinger Flynn, and the acting for this character is even worse than the others. He would use his stinger to knock us out and show us things that barely make sense. And don't worry, as the chapters progressed, these scenes would get crazier. The most stressful part of this chapter, in my opinion, is when the player is trapped in some sort of office room with Bambalina and Nab, and you're trying to escape without Jumbo Josh, you know, the green guy from the end of the first chapter, realizes that what he thinks are toys are actually alive on some Toy Story type crap. It wasn't until the release of Chapter 4 where the series started going downhill for me. For Chapter 4 and onwards, the Euphoric brothers decided to take the series in a different direction by adding more comedy than jump scares. They also, for some reason, skipped Chapter 5 and went from 4 straight to 6. Why is that?
Were they trying to be clever? Because it failed!
I hear there is going to be a Chapter 5, but that it's going to be a prequel, but it still has yet to see the light of day. I also saw the latest trailer for Chapter 7, and I'm just gonna say this. Really? Aliens? We're going in that direction now? At this point, I believe the Euphoric brothers are running out of ideas and are just scraping the bottom of the barrel with what they can do with the characters. I'll still play Chapter 7 because at this point, it's a commitment for me. I made it this far, why stop now? So what are my thoughts on both games? In my opinion, they both may have the same premise of someone visiting an abandoned facility with mascot characters roaming the place, but both mob games and the Euphoric brothers take a different approach when it comes to each game. On one hand, you've got Garten of BanBan, where the Euphoric brothers try to pump out as many games as possible within a short time span to keep people buying their games. On the other hand, you've got Poppy Playtime, where Mob Games puts a lot more time and effort into their game to make sure that the person playing can get the best experience possible. That's why there are longer gaps with the Poppy Playtime series than there are with Garten of BanBan. At the end of the day, it's a quality versus quantity situation. So which game do I think is better? Poppy Playtime easy. Garten of BanBan is a prime example of quantity, where they try to make as many games as possible to try and keep the players entertained, which can work if done correctly. When I played Garten of BanBan, it's a good excuse to keep myself busy while I wait for the next Poppy Playtime game, but I wouldn't want to revisit it 10 years later. Meanwhile, Poppy Playtime is a prime example of quality, where even though it doesn't have as many chapters or games as Garten of BanBan does, the wait is always worth it, because I know I'm gonna get a good game. The 20-month wait between Chapter 2 and Chapter 3 was well worth it, and I had a lot of fun. I would totally revisit this game 10, 20, even 50 years later to see if the game still holds up. But what do you guys think? Which game do you think is better, Poppy Playtime or Garten of BanBan? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. I will see you guys next time.